Hey, Trails Collective! Ian here for the weekly rundown of the Northeast trail running world and some of the trail running world at large for the week ending October 15th, 2021. Hopefully it is equally as beautiful on your end as I'm filming here. The sun is shining, supposed to be in the mid 70s. And yeah, the fall has just been a gorgeous one here. So hopefully you're all taking advantage of that. Seen quite a number of photos from this past weekend from individuals getting up into the Adirondacks and bagging some of the high peaks, so to speak. A good number of individuals that ran Boston Marathon this past week and just had a beautiful day. Even if their bus took them out of the way into the wrong location and dropped them off maybe miles from the start.
Hey, here's a little update from the Boston Marathon. Our bus got lost, and there's several buses of people walking down a street in New England on a fall day. It's a beautiful day.
It'd be great if you don't have to run 26 miles after that.
But we're going on a stroll. We hope we make it to Hopkinton, and then we're going to run a marathon. It's no big deal. Whatever.
Looked like quite the adventure, but a beautiful week in running. So hopefully it was as wherever you are as well. All right, so in this episode, we'll take you through some of the pieces of the media that caught my attention. We'll take you through some of the hot list of events that are open in terms of registrations, about to cap out. We'll take you through some of the results, and we have, as usual, a handful of voices in from the collective from our region, as well as a race in the news from outside of our region. And we will take you out with some of the events upcoming this weekend. All right, so let's get into it. In the media, a number of pieces here that caught my attention this week. Thanks to CULTRA for sending the notice my way in my relative neck of the woods. Episode number 158, entitled 360 Miles in the Erie Canal with Tricia Ignatowski. And we covered this on the Trails Collective a couple weeks. And in addition to getting a clip in from Tricia on her effort, but that was a big FKT on the full Erie Canal. Burly, well, I guess burly in the sense that it's just long. Otherwise, it's flat, scenic in places, but 360 miles is 360 miles. So check that out from CULTRA. A critical piece of probably media that caught my attention was Jimmy Mack. Many of you know Jimmy from Connecticut. Looks like after a 130-mile week back in August, he is considering running again. So for any of those who are interested, Jimmy McCaffrey may start running again sometime soon, so keep an eye on that. One that hit the media and press, because that's what sells in the press, was the DC Peaks 50. His first year event run in the Wasatch Range outside of Salt Lake. And a somewhat unseasonal blizzard up high brought in 12 to 18 inches of fresh snow, stiff winds, and a drop in temperature. And the media seized on that. 70 participants actually descended to a lower aid station for evac on their own. A dozen or so, I think, brought in through search and rescue. And there's a good article on iRunFar, and where the comments below the article are probably just as insightful and useful as the article itself. And some of those were included from participants themselves. And I was able to connect with one of the participants that popped up in one of the Facebook threads, Daniel Combs, and he is in from Arizona, and we'll have a clip from him and the results and voices section a little bit later in this episode. So stay tuned for that, for an on-the-ground takeaway from DC Peaks. Another one that a friend cued me into was the What I Built podcast, and this one was with Wayne Eddy, the Innovate founder. Innovate, pretty cool trail company, born in the fells of UK. Cool company. I think years ago they were acquired by a larger than parent company, I think based out of Japan, if I remember right. From my vantage point as one of their vendors all along, I don't know, I think the company somewhat lost its way. I don't think the parent company really was able to stay true to the brand and the mission and the space. And so I think just a few years ago now, Wayne Eddy, the founder, reacquired or repurchased the company, I think maybe even in full. And so I'm really looking forward to them getting back on track, hopefully back on trail. the next few years. But there's a podcast. Looking forward to listening to that. Haven't yet, but I will plug the link here in case anybody is interested. And then one that popped up is an article called The World's Hardest Race. Distance, elevation gain, and per mile, temperature, and energy expenditure per mile were all attributes that an author pulled together. He probably looked at maybe 24 different races from Hard Rock to Barkley to Dragon's Back. Some of the, I guess, marquee events. Moab, I think 240 was maybe on there. And looked at a way to maybe Eastern States was on there, measure somewhat apples to apples. And so it was kind of fun to, I guess, read through that. I still think my ranking on the Trails Collective, even though it's a regional focus for the toughest trail races in the Northeast, might be even a little bit more accurate. Sure, I'm not, I am taking into consideration, I think, most of those. I think energy expenditure is not one that probably I had a formula for. But the others, something that the author disregarded was things like technicality of terrain, and just said it would be too difficult to quantify. Well, I think to a certain extent on a smaller scale you can quantify that. You can reach out, you can get to know some of the areas, you've run some of the areas. So I stand by mine probably being a better lineup and particularly suited to the Northeast. But regardless, it was kind of a fun article to check out, and we'll have the link plugged as well. All right, UltraSignUp Hotlist. And there are some races that are open on other registration platforms like Run Sign Up. They don't necessarily have these features that I'm aware of. So this is just one of them. And so I'll for sure miss races that are open and may cap out. I just don't really have a way to monitor them. In Maryland, Topsco Valley 50K. This is one that I really enjoyed running and filming in 2019. It's slated for October 30th outside of Baltimore. It's showing it's 100% full. At the time of filming, I think there were maybe 2 spots remaining. So you can check that out if you're interested. In New Jersey, the last squash standing, slated to run on October 30th, using a 1-mile loop in the South Mountain Reservation in West Orange, New Jersey. Roller derby tactics expressly indicated to not be permitted, but rocking out is. Only 7 spots still remaining as of Tuesday. So check that out with the Sasquatch crew. Few FKTs on the Fastest Known Times website this week. In Delaware, Stephen Eland, 1 hour 4 minutes for the Delaware lowest to highest, going from the Delaware River to the state's highest point at 448 feet. Nosebleed section for a 670-foot rise over the 8 miles. Stephen's time shaved off 11 minutes off the prior best set by Matthew Mata in January of this year. In Maine, Katie Clayton, 3 hours, 54 minutes for the Camden Hills. A beautiful sounding 19-mile loop, which has 4,300 feet of gain. The description. Camden Hills State Park is renowned for panoramic view of Camden Harbor and Penobscot Bay from the top of Mount Batty, which inspired Edna St. Vincent Millay's poem, Renaissance. I did look up, and I was going to read you at least part of said poem, but I found it to be, well, really long. And it's long. It's kind of fun. And it definitely describes, I think, the bay and the inspiration, but it's kind of long, so you should look it up. That's Edna St. Vincent Millay's poem, Renaissance. Check that out. Rhode Island, Debbie Livingston just keeps ranking. 1 hour, 20 minutes for the 9-mile Arcadia Mount Tom Trail, lowering Liz Allen's time from a year ago by 7 minutes. And happy anniversary, I believe I saw also this week, to Debbie and Scott, a wonderful active couple and family, so congratulations on your anniversary. In the results, one that was all over my feed was the Boston Marathon. Quite a number of friends that were out there. Yes, road race, but one that goes deep, as we all know, in running culture, particularly here in the U.S. And it just looked like people had a lot of just great days being in the Boston mix. All right, another one that caught my eye, Paul Jacobs with a Virginia Happy Trail running club affiliation. Ran 13:44 at Canal Corridor outside the Northeast. This is one that's in Ohio. But it was the second fastest men's time in history of that event and totally flying at 13:44. Nice work, Paul. And another one was a good friend and an individual that I support or sponsor, Ellie Pell. She is now, after her finish at the Can Lake 50 mile topping the list for the fastest 50-mile women's mark in the country this year with a time of 6:21:40. Moving. Ellie is tough, and congrats. Good to see you at the top of the list. All right, getting into some trail events. And we'll take it state by state here, and we'll weave in some voices. In Connecticut, Centurion 24-hour. It was an event that used a 3.25-mile loop of sorts. I think it was kind of maybe an oblong or some outbacks in the loop. Maybe in the Roosevelt's Forest in Stratford, Connecticut. It's most known, I think, for introducing me to the word restfeber. It's a Swedish word meaning the restless race of the traveler's heart before the journey begins, when anxiety and anticipation are tangled together. That's right, look it up. Restfeber, Resfeber. It's a good word. It should probably become part of your lexicon. But the event Centurion 24-hour seemed to focus as much on that word as any of the details actually of the event. But here to cue us into what came after Resfeber and deeper into the inaugural Centurion 24, overall winner with 100.75 miles covered, Chase Arsenault.
Hi, my name is Chase Arsenault. I'm the winner of this year's inaugural Centurion 24-hour Ultra that took place at Roosevelt Forest in Stratford, Connecticut. Got the shirt on here. Just picked up Chipotle. I'm sitting in my driveway recording this. But so the Centurion 24-hour Ultra I heard about from the race director himself. His name is Lou. He runs a series of Ultras in Roosevelt Forest in Stratford. And this year he started a new one, the Centurion. So I knew him from previous Ultras that I ran there, and he suggested the new one to me this year. So I signed up for it and decided to give it a shot. The Centurion was a 3.25 mile loop, and you have 24 hours to do as many as you can, get credit for each completed loop. And what's cool about that is you're running the same loop every time, coming through the same pavilion at the start of the trail. So it's great to have spectators there. Your family and friends could show up. My dad and sister and mom showed up at various times throughout the race to cheer me on and help crew for me through the night. And then at 6 a.m., one of my close friends, I lived with him for 2 years in college. His name's Batch. He paced for me for the last 6 hours, a little under 6 hours. And we went, he took me from mile 19, or the last 19 miles, so mile 81-ish to just over 100. And that was the furthest he ever went. So that was super cool that he got to help me get to 100 miles, but I also got to be there with him while he was setting his new personal best for distance run. The race was a pretty tough course. It was the most challenging of any of the races I've done at Roosevelt Forest. It was really hilly, rooty, and rocky. I was able to keep a pretty good pace during the day. The first 12 hours, I was able to crank out 62 miles. But when it was dark, I slowed down a lot. It was tough to get footing during the night. With all the routes on the trail, and there were some killer hills on this loop. Lou calls them the OMG hills, and they were some pretty tough hills. They weren't hills that you could run up. They were covered in roots and rocks, and it was very steep. So you just had to power through and hike up it, and then get back to work with running after you summit that hill. I had some pretty cool experiences during the nighttime as well. I came across deer multiple times on the trail, so that was pretty cool. One time was a buck face to face with me. Another time there were 4 deer. One of them was standing in the middle of the trail, and I didn't know that they were deer yet. I was afraid that they were coyotes. So I was looking up ahead at some beady yellow eyes, and I saw it was a four-legged animal, and I was like, oh no. So I started backpedaling, and then once I realized it was a deer, I realized that the headlamp had made it freeze in the middle of the trail, and so I just started talking to the deer to get it to move out of the way. So that was funny. That was pretty amusing. But Lou puts on a really great show at every single one of his races. You know, he tries to learn the names of everyone in the race, and he encourages everyone there, fast or slow. And he really tries to bring out the best in everyone at every single race that he puts on. So that's what keeps drawing me back to his races. I have a lot of fun at them. There's great people. He's built a really great community, and I'll be back for more of his races next year. And I'm really excited to get back to Roosevelt and see if I could top my performance from the other day next year. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, just Lou is awesome. If you ever have the opportunity to sign up for one of his races, I encourage it. It's a great time. He's got a good sense of humor. When I was at mile 97, I went up to Lou, and this was like a little over 22 hours into the run, maybe like 22:30 or so. And I needed one more lap to get to 100, and I was like, hey Lou, I'm thinking of going home. 97's pretty good. I'm just not feeling it anymore, you know. I'm just gonna head out. Thanks for putting on a great race. And the look on his face was priceless. It cracked me up, and it gave me and Batch a good laugh on our last loop around the course. But yeah, it was a really great time. Yeah, and if you ever can, sign up for one of Lou's ultras at Roosevelt Forest. It's some of the most fun that you could have in ultra running, and great experience for friends and family to come support you. So yeah.
So well done, Chase. That is a good day. I had a little over 100 miles. Nice work, and thank you for that clip. In Maryland, Rick O'Donnell Memorial, or the Rix Run, is a 5.22 mile trail run and ultra challenge 8-hour run in Greenbrier State Park. It's run to honor three individuals: Rick O'Donnell, Larry Key, and John Godinay, all friends and members of the Frederick Steeplechase Running Club, and with proceeds benefiting a scholarship fund for high school seniors. Of 202 finishers, the overall 5.22 mile men's and women's winners in the day were Michael Hole and Cheryl Scholl, and a solid showing in 8-hour as well, with 125 finishers, with Michael Hole again on top with just under 47 miles covered for the men's win, and Adeline Tam with 36.5 miles covered. Moving up to Maine, the Big Brad Ultra is running in Bradbury Mountain State Park in Pownell. They have been on my radar, I think, since their first running in 2012. There were a couple of the Trail Monster crew that came down to Virgil Crest in one of the early years, which then put the event and area on my radar. And I actually stopped through passing one time coming back from Nova Scotia and pulled off to run the course, and I found it pretty nice and flowy. This year we will have Erik Johnson finishing what looks like a wicked tight race for fourth in the 50K, and Jason Tardy, who finished his first 50 mile, to dig us deeper into the Big Brad. So fellas, take us deeper.
Hi, my name is Erik Johnson, and I ran the Big Brad 50K, also known as the Pounder, this past Sunday. This was my 5th time running the Pounder. I've run it 5 times over the last 6 years, and it was also my first 50K ever back in 2016. Big Brad is a unique course. You know, it's a 50K with about 4,000 feet of elevation, which is kind of impressive considering that the highest point on the course is barely above 500 feet above sea level. It poses a really unique challenge of one, never being flat. You're either going up or down, and then just some really technical, gnarly trails. So it takes this really unique combination of strength and speed to really be competitive out there. I think a lot of people find, and I know that I've found personally, is that I can run one lap really, really well, and then lap two just comes up and bites you really hard. My day for me out there this past year was pretty much what I had expected it to be. I had rolled my ankle about 6 weeks ago, and as well as a friend of mine, and neither of us had expected to be on the starting line really. And it wasn't until this past week where we were messaging a little bit that we were both feeling okay, and thought, yeah, let's get on the starting line, let's give this a shot, and just kind of see what happens, go out and just enjoy being on the trails for a day, kind of regardless of where we end up. And we did exactly that. We went out and we tried not to get caught up in like the race that was going on in front of us, and just really, we ran together and just enjoyed the day, enjoyed the time out there. I think what keeps me coming back to this race is, one, I live less than a mile from the park, so I'm out there year round usually, and I know those trails, I love those trails, and so just the opportunity to race out there is always, it's just always fun for me. And then I think the biggest reason though is the people. When I first moved to Maine 6 years, when I first signed up for this race, I really didn't know anybody in the trail running community. I was just out of college, and I thought, hey, let's run a trail race. This will be fun. And over the last 5 or 6 years, I've really gotten to know the trail monster community that puts these races on, and I'm now a trail monster myself. And they're just some of my favorite people that I've met. They love trail running. And they love just the community that they've built, and I just think they do a wonderful job.
Hey everybody, my name is Jason Tardy, and I just competed in the Big Brad Ultras Punisher 50 miler here in Maine. Just outside of Freeport, Maine, at the Bradbury Mountain State Park. It is an awesome trail race. They do have a 50K called the Pounder, which I competed in 2017. And technically, this is only my second ultra marathon officially doing the 50 miler, but I have run the Trail Monsters who put on this event. They also put on the Riverlands 100, and I have part of a relay team there, which is at the Androscoggin Riverland State Park, also here in beautiful Maine. And when I've done the relay, I've gotten to do 40 miles the last few years, and then last year I did 60 miles. So although I've only technically done 2 ultramarathons, this one was, I've done a few before. But in any case, this one was really fun. It starts at 6 a.m. on the dot. And you are required to have a headlamp if you're doing the 50 mile. The 50K, I think they start 2 hours later. Pretty sure that's what it is. But we started at 6 o'clock, went right out. There was some cool tiki torches lit up, kind of to start us off, which was fun. And then we headed right up Bradbury Mountain, doing a switchback, which looked amazing because you see runners below you, you see runners above you, everyone's got their headlamps, and you kind of see everyone snaking up the mountain. It was really cool. And then basically you just do this like little, I think it was 2 mile loop, come back kind of through the start finish area, go out to the other side, you cross a road, and that section is relatively flat. Relatively flat for here in Maine. Lots of rocks, roots, but it's nice. You're kind of cruising along, and then by the time you get through all of that, you come back to the start finish again, throw off your headlamp, and then go back toward the mountain. And that is a lot of fun. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's one section right after road crossing where the hill is ridiculous. You look at it and you're like, seriously, why are we doing this? It's just this super steep, it almost looks like a little ski jump of a hill. It's not super long, but it is just so steep. It's very fun. So yeah, there was a lot of interesting names people came up with for that hill. But the thing I like about this race the most is the community. The Trail Monsters, in general, they put on a great race. All the volunteers, most of them are runners. They're trail runners themselves. They understand what you need. They understand how to help you. They make you laugh. I had so much fun getting at the aid stations. I'm like, I really need to get going, but these guys are so much fun. And I even had one of the people I ran with for a while. He was saying how he loves coming to these events here in Maine because the courses are so well marked. They do a really, really good job because there's no way I'd ever remember this course if I went back there. It goes so many different directions, but it's so well marked. You're not going to get lost at all. But also the community. He was just saying, the guy I was running with, he was just saying, how everyone just is so great. There's this community, everyone's backing each other. It feels so good. The vibe is just awesome. So that's one of the best things about the whole race. And for me, I actually didn't train a lot over the summer because I am a professional performing artist. I do fire eating and fire breathing and juggling and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I did 60 miles in May for the Riverlands 100, but then didn't get a lot of training in over the summer. So I was mostly depending on my base and just like grit. But I think I did pretty well. I was hoping to finish somewhere within the cutoff, which the cutoff is a little tight. It's 12 and a half hours for 50 miles. And on this course, that's not that easy. There was a few people that got in right under the wire. There's a few people that finished after the time. I got in under 11 hours, which I probably could have been a little faster for sure, especially if I trained. But I was really, really happy with 11 hours. I mean, I was happy to finish, but it was such a fun course. One of the other cool things I like that the Trail Monsters do is for this event, especially is, you don't get like a medal or anything like that. I think some people really love collecting the medals. I like sweatshirts. So for finishing, you get a sweatshirt, which is awesome. I love having these sweatshirts. So I got a few from some of the other races as well. But I think that's really, really fun to get a sweatshirt instead of, a medal that's probably going to just sit in a box unless you have some fancy display case, which I do not. Again, the route, it's a lot of routes, rocks, New England Technical, so much fun. Let's see, I know there's some other things I want to mention. The foliage, yes. Oh, yeah. So the foliage was just getting close to peak. It wasn't quite peak this year, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You get some great views. You're in the forest. The weather was perfect. It only got up to like 60 degrees. So all that made the race really, really fun. And I encourage anybody out there that is interested in getting into trail ultras. This is a great one, especially if you want to get started. The 50K, very generous cutoff time. And again, the people are so supportive. So much information they give you, and yeah, I love it. I love it. I'll definitely be back. So yeah, that's it for me. Bye-bye.
So good job, Erik and Jason. Nice work on your efforts and giving us a good portrait of the Big Brad Ultras. Moving over to New Hampshire. Actually, where in New Hampshire? I guess maybe a little bit down on this one, south. Midstate Massive. Ultra Trails 30 mile, 50 mile, 100 miles based in New Ipswich, Mass. Spans Massachusetts with border crossings in New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Now in its third year, each of the distances appears to be growing well in field size. There were also some fast times run. Of 71 finishers in the 100-mile, Nicholas Wurz took the overall 100-mile win and second fastest time in course history with 20:15. And Kate Olson set a new women's course record of 22:43. Kate hails from Studio City, California, and I was really hoping that at age 35 that meant maybe she was one of the Olsen twins. Come on, who doesn't remember the Olsen twins? Fortunately, stalking her on Facebook, it appears she is much cooler and tougher, and indeed not one of the Olsen twins. Nice work, Kate. 52 in the 50-mile, Chris Crowley and Maya Madison took the men's and women's wins in 8:29 and 9:37. Maya crushing the women's course record marked by over an hour. And of 45 in the 50K, Flora Berkline outran Nick Pavlovsky for the overall win in 4:56 versus 4:58. And then taking us deeper into the feel and visage of Midstate Massive, 100-mile finisher Anthony Certa.
All right, you ready? And go. All right. Hey, what's up, Ian? How are you, man? Thank you so much for having us. Ian, I'm Anthony. As you remember, this is my buddy Rob. And the two of us, we did the Midstate Massive Ultra Trail 100 miler put on by New England Race Events, and the race director, his name was Mark. awesome guy. My buddy Rob over here, he was one of my crew members, and he actually was my pacer for the last, what was it,
25.7 miles.
25.7 miles, the last 25.7. He paced me, and we had a great time. So we're just going to give you a quick rundown of what the Midstate Massive was like. First off, it started in New England, in New Hampshire, and it was beautiful. What would you say? Like the trees, the foliage, everything was spot on and on point. It was incredible. So it started in New Hampshire, and then we made our way through the Midstate Trail into Massachusetts. And once again, the foliage was incredible. The trails were awesome. And then we slightly dipped into Connecticut, hit Rhode Island, and then back into Massachusetts to get our 100 miles. So this race was really cool. This was my first 100-mile race. And when it came to picking a 100-mile race for me, I just thought to myself, I don't want to go in loops and loops and loops and loops to destroy my body to go in loops. I want to go from point A to point B, see some incredible stuff, have an awesome adventure. And that's exactly what this was. So this race consisted of 15 aid stations, which was awesome. Because for me, it just broke it into small chunks between like 6 and 8 miles that all I got to do is suck it up for 6 to 8 miles, and I'll get some good food, I'll get a break, I could see some new faces. And within those 15 aid stations, about half of them, I had my crew. So I just had to suck it up for maybe 16 miles, and then I could see my friends. And that really kept me going, because there was a few moments during this race where I was just like, man, I cannot wait to see my friends. And I'm looking at my watch, and I'm like, all right, 6 miles to go. All right, 5 miles to go. Okay, 1 hour to go. I can do it. I can do it. So that was really cool how this race was able to be broken up into chunks for me. And as my first 100, that really made it more manageable. So aid station 1 and 2, they were fairly early on, obviously, in the race. Aid station 3 was at about mile 22, and that's the first time I got to see my crew. And that was incredible, because I ran into the aid station. They were all waiting for me. They were cheering for me. I was 22 miles in, and it was like a NASCAR pit stop. They had the chair out there waiting for me. I borrowed a chair from my school that I teach at, a nice metal school chair that is not comfortable. So they had the chair waiting for me, and it was like NASCAR, like I said. One guy was peeling off the watch. The other guy was untying my shoe. The other guy was feeding me food. It was great. And then he was like, get out of here. You can't stay too long. So I was out running again. And aid station 4, I was also able to meet up with them. And that was about 27.5 miles in. And that was at, I can't even pronounce it. Mount
Wachusett Ski Resort.
Wachusett Ski Resort. Have y'all heard of Wachusett Ski Resort? Well, it's pretty beautiful. And we were able to use the trails to go on up that and go down it. Of course, I got lost a little bit off trail, but that was okay, because the race was supposed to be 95 miles, and they were like, oh, everybody gets lost, so you'll get your 100 miles that way. So every time I got lost, I'm like, I'm working towards my 100. But yeah, that Wachusett mountain was really rocky, and it was tough, man. You know, like, you had to sit down. Like, I had my trekking poles. I had to throw my trekking poles a little bit, sit down, glide off the rock, make a few foot jump. And it was like pounding and pounding on the knees, but thankfully it was brief. After that, we had quite a bit of road miles, which was nice. Kind of give your legs a little bit of reprieve from all that jumping from the mountain. So then aid station 5 and 6, really, it was put on by the organization, and they had some great people. The volunteers for this were incredible, awesome volunteers. They were full of smiles. The food was great. They had body armor, nutritional drink. That stuff was good. The water was cold. What more could you ask for? Rolled in to aid station 7, which was mile 50. And now I've been running for, what was it, about I don't know, 12,
12 or 13 hours at that point, and it had been dark for maybe like 2.5 or 3 hours.
Yeah, so it's been dark. I've been running by myself. I finally run into aid station 7. I meet all my friends, and they had a little solo stove, like bonfire going. They had the Coleman kitchen set up going. They had hot food for me, and they were just like NASCAR pit stop, pulling off my shoes, getting my watch, getting my phone to charge up, giving me a new change of clothes. I believe Rob was giving me a back massage. It was incredible. Like, to be treated like that with such an amazing crew, I want to do these all over again, just for that. Maybe that makes me selfish, I don't know. So then aid station 7 was great because I picked up my first pacer, my buddy TJ. He's a great friend of mine. We grew up, we went to high school. We were friends back in high school. Awesome guy. And it was great. We ran from aid station 7 all the way to aid station 11. We ran together. We ran all through the night with a mix of some trails and a lot of roads. And it was just pretty nice. At aid station 11, that's where Rob and I connected and got to pick up. And it was awesome because the sun was just coming up. My stomach was a little funny, cleared that out of the way, and then we just kept on going. And it was awesome. We were able just to keep each other motivated, pushing each other along the way, and it was great. There were so many highlights of the times of us running. You got any highlights?
Oh, when we ran together?
Yeah, when we ran together.
Well, so when Anthony came in to aid station 11, it was about 5 o'clock or 5:30 or I don't know, something like that in the morning. It was really early in the morning. It was pretty cold. It was foggy. It was damp, and it was 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning after he had been running for 70 miles. That was the one time that you slept. He slept. He said, "I'm gonna lie down for about 10 minutes," and 10 minutes later we woke him up, and he said 5 more minutes. So he said, "Okay." So 5 minutes went by, and then we were ready to run. So when he came into the aid station, we got you some food, we changed your stuff, we charged everything, you laid down, and then that sleep really paid off. I think that was really good for you at that point in the race.
Absolutely. I was falling asleep. We were running through a field right before we got to the aid station. I was like falling asleep with my trekking poles. It was crazy. I needed that. And for my crew to wake me up at 10 and then to give me another 5, it was insurmountable. It was the greatest thing ever.
So, it's fine. Yeah. So after we left the aid station, I think it was around the 6 o'clock. I don't know. It was early in the morning, but it was just starting to get light out. I think we only needed our headlamps for maybe like 20 to 30 minutes, right? We didn't need them for that long. It got daylight out. We ditched the headlamps. We kept running. After aid station 11, it was quite a couple miles of road, right? There was some road crossings where there were police, so that was kind of sketchy. There were a little, there was traffic, obviously, because it was in the morning, but we crossed the streets, everything was all right. And we just kept going. At that point, for you, the end was in sight, and I kept telling him while we were running that he had more miles behind him than there were in front of him.
That was
right?
a big help.
Yeah. So you had more miles behind you than there were in front of you. He had gotten through the tough night already. It was daylight again, so that made navigating and just running and existing on the trail and the course in general a lot easier. The next aid station where we met TJ and the other crew, Rob, again, which one was that?
What was that, 12?
Yeah,
12.
We met him at 12. I don't really remember what happened, but Anthony was doing great. He was definitely tired, definitely fatigued, but he kept going like a champ. He was smiling, talking the whole way to everybody, having a great time, which is what it was all about. And
the last 2 miles of the race is, for me, when the race kicked in. The race kicked into gear the last 2 miles, and it was incredible. I was able to my mind was like, dude, if you got 2 miles left, I know I can run 2 miles. So I was booking it. There was a lot of decline, so I was able just to use that momentum. A lot of crazy rocks, roots and a lot of obstacles. But Rob kept saying, what would you keep saying? Go around the big rocks and light steps.
Good steps, no mistakes.
Good steps, no mistakes. As I'm running, he's behind me. Good steps, no mistakes. Good steps, no mistakes. And I was cooking, man. I was cooking. I passed this one woman, and she was struggling. And I don't know if she was doing the 50 mile, the 30 mile, the 100 mile race, but she was really struggling. And I run by her, and I'm like, take my pole. And she's like, I don't. And I'm like, just take it. I got a blue truck. I'll see you later. We're near the end. And we started running. Rob gave me his pole. Awesome, man. Gave me his pole, and we were cooking. And we ended up finishing the race. I saw the chute, and that was it, man. I just finished it. I looked around, and I was like, holy smokes, 100 miles. I just did it. And, like, I'm nobody special. I'm just a regular dude. I'm a middle school special ed teacher that ran 100 miles. Kind of cool. But honestly, New England race events, they put on a killer race.
Great. It was a great race.
You
It
know,
was a great event to just be a part of. It was really awesome.
Super organized, awesome race. You know, I got 100 miles on the dot. I had 11,601 feet of elevation gain. I completed it in 28 hours and 37 minutes, and I burned 10,877 calories. So I'm about ready to go get me a Big Mac or something, but I'm plant-based, so maybe not. Anyway, Ian, thank you so much for having us. Your show's awesome. I always look forward to watching it, and thank you so much. Take care, guys.
So well done, sir. Well done. Also in New Hampshire, Vulcan's Fury, running in Nottingham, is another updated gem under the direction of 603 Racing's Tom Hooper. Myself, my wife, and one of my daughters were registered to run, but with my daughter running cross country and me coaching, it just didn't end up being in the cards. Running is over what was once the site of an active volcano. Pretty cool geological history up there, and it looks like a sweet course with a signature boulder scramble. And to cue us into the course and day at Vulcan's was winner and new course record holder on his home course, Nottingham's Brandon Newbould.
Man, this is my 4th attempt now at this. I thought the last one was going to take. I am not a professional at recording myself, but I think this one will be good. I shouldn't run out of space or anything. My name's Brandon Newbould. I ran the Vulcan's Fury race, which took place last weekend. It's a good race. Not my first rodeo. I've done this longer course a couple of times. Used to be a 10-mile event hosted by Acidotic, fine company. Now run by 603 and run excellently by 603. Marked excellently, you could say. Hard to get lost. Sorry to the guy from Maine I met who did get lost, but I think if you're paying attention, you won't. It's a 13-mile course featuring more of the best that Pawtuckaway State Park has to offer now that we go over what we call North Mountain. I don't have the course record in this. If you're a guy, you may want to pay attention to this stuff. You might be trying to figure out if you can take a crack. It's held right now by Erik Johnson. He's got a minute on me, I think. He's a good friend, very good on technical terrain. That's a clue. He switched places with me when I moved out here from Alaska. Went for a run with him one time in Portsmouth, and then he moved to Seward, where my dad used to work, on the other side of the Kenai Peninsula. He excels at mountain racing, and Pawtuckaway lends itself to that. It also lends itself to people with fine footwork and descending skills and maybe poor judgment, especially on that North Mountain bypass. There's leaves falling down right now, but over this weekend the trails were pretty clear. That's maybe unseasonal. Things are running a little bit behind this year, as far as I can tell. Trails were pretty free and clear of leaves, and you could see where you're putting your feet. But a lot of times finishing on the Waranaco Trail, among other trails, you can't really see where you're putting your feet. So, Pawtuckaway. It's a beautiful park in this beautiful town. I'm recording this in Nottingham, coming up on our 300th anniversary since it was founded in 1722. The Historical Society has been presenting all kinds of lectures recently, teaching us about the land and terrain and geology. It's one that I listened to. They talked about Pawtucket quite a bit. I like to tell people who are visiting in there when I'm running around in the park, which I do all the time, they should take a look at a satellite image on the computer of the park. If you zoom out quite a ways, you can see a very clearly defined but overgrown volcanic crater. That's why it's called Vulcan's Fury, from what I hear. Middle Mountain, so-called Middle Mountain, is the cinder cone in the center of that crater, and North and South Mountains are the north and south edges of the crater's rim, and they're rugged. I'll get to that with the course. Outside of the crater is a very pretty lake that I get to enjoy here in Nottingham at our exclusive town beach that you don't get to come to unless you call me up first, which you could do that. I'll take you over there. It's the end of a long Class 6 road out in the woods, really quiet. Take the kids out there. There's a water snake. He's not little, actually. He likes to swim through there with his head sticking up like the Loch Ness Monster. Kids all scream at it. Pulled the state champion white sucker out of that lake, too, as far as I can tell. A lot of native fish in there, bass and pickerel. That's a pretty lake. You don't get to go to it in the race, unfortunately. But yeah, it takes me about 3 miles, 4 miles to get to the northern edge of the state park from where I live. I like to go through there. I take the high school boys that I coach out there sometimes for long runs. That's a special experience. Probably lose a year of their lives out there. And I like to take my own kids out there to climb around in the boulders. Bouldering, that's a sport. And Pawtucket is famous for that, from what I hear. The course takes you through the boulder fields, actually. Probably around 3 miles in or something like that. Back in the pre-Strava days, I'd get to that boulder field section, and right around when we take a right and there's a sign that says 1 mile to summit, I would see if I could get up there in 10 minutes or under. Took me a couple years, running pretty hard too, to do that. They used to have this ugly little green tower up there. They tore that down. The course goes right over that. Should we get to some practical notes on the course? Okay. You start off in that parking lot, you get moving. If you're the type of guy who can run, comfortable mid 5-minute miles, something like that, you can settle into a good sub-6 pace on that Fundy Trail early on. Ladies, you just translate this too for wherever your level is at. It's good footing is what I'm trying to say. It's an old carriage road. And after a couple miles, you turn onto a decidedly more technical trail, one of the most technical in the park, the Shaw Trail. There's no mountains out there or anything like that, but it just keeps you out of rhythm all the time. It's difficult. You got to know where to put your feet. That's sort of how the rest of this goes. But a lot of the inclines and descents, you can plan ahead on being really aggressive on those if you're in shape, because they don't last that long. This is a race that's all about managing transitions, in my opinion. So you break it up into these small hills, you hit it hard, and then there's going to be a really aggressive descent. You hit that hard for what it is. And then when you hit some smooth roads, which you will in the center of the race, those access roads to Round Pond, you settle back into a good road groove. And late in the race, you'll have to come back on that Waranaco Trail. It'll probably be leaf covered, and you'll be asking yourself, why is this so difficult? It just twists around a lot, and there's a lot of rocks to jump over. And I don't know, man, but it is. I oftentimes smack into trees on that trail late in the run or in the race when I'm getting a little bit tired. That's my rundown of the race. Pro tip, when you take that last turn onto Waranaco, you probably have about 25 minutes left to go if you're up at the front of the race. You can gauge your effort accordingly. Come out and see this race. If you've only ever seen the White Mountains in New Hampshire or something like that, then you haven't seen the best in everything that we have to offer. It's an interesting race. It's a great New England trail race, and you won't regret coming out to see it.
So nice work, Brandon. Nice run. Solid time. Cool to be on your home turf there. New Jersey Trail Series 1 day down in New Jersey. Run at the fairgrounds in Augusta. Uses the same 1 mile course and format as their popular series 3 days at the fair. Though I find myself a bit confused. This one's called the 1 day. But the 1 day event offers 6, 12, 24, and 48-hour options. Last I counted, that makes it a 2 day. But maybe I'm missing something. And well, who's counting? Kieran Williams and Jessica LeMay took the men's and women's 48-hour wins with 157 and 142 miles respectively. Shout out to CULTRA's indefatigable Fred Morallo with a stout 102 miles covered. Nice work, Fred. Sergey Arbona and Melissa Gill in the 24-hour with 126 and 95. In the 12-hour, Christopher DeLucia was 67. And a special shout out to Gags on his heels with 64. And Helen Clark with 43 miles in the 6-hour. In the 6-hour rather, Tom Lyman and Jessica Marsico with 41 and well, I don't remember what the other one was. I wrote a time here rather than the distance. I don't know. It's probably, well, I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was like 34 miles or something. But nice work. There was a marathon at 50K as well, but I'm tapping out on announcing divisions. All right. In New York, Tesla Hertz runs 50K, 50 mile, 100K, 100 mile. In Rocky Point, it uses a 10-mile green belt trail loop in the Pine Barrens of Long Island. They're put on by the most excellent Vinny and Nicole of Happily Running. And the course runs are steeped in Nikola Tesla radio tower history, which sounds like it's kind of a cool thing to see. I think can pass by actually out on the course. And there's another one with a bunch of this is another one with a bunch of sub races. Instead of running through each, I have the link plugged. And I'm instead going to jump to getting a word in from the ground. So this round, going with Trail Sister Beck Abrams, 50-mile finisher. I think her first 50-mile, sent in this clip to provide a bit of Tesla flavor. So Beck, take it away.
Hi, my name is Beck Abrams, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here to report on Tesla Hertz 50-miler. I ran my first 50-miler this past weekend in Rocky Point, New York on Long Island as a part of the Tesla Hertz run, and there are many distances in that race. So there's a 10-miler, a 50K, a 50-miler, 100K, and 100-miler. The race is run by race directors Vinny and Nicole Capadora and a great team of volunteers that make you feel really welcome and help you get through whatever you need to complete the race. Like I said, it was my first 50-miler, so I didn't know about the race until July when I met Vinny volunteering at another race, Heater X, and decided to jump in and take a shot at 50 miles. So I had been training on my own, and for the past 6 weeks, I trained with a coach, Jill Becker from Boundless Coaching in Colorado, as part of a Trail Sisters coaching grant. I'm one of 5 women who were selected to work on our running with a coach, to work on whatever our goals were. Mine's really to kind of find my mojo again. I lost it a little over the pandemic, and to get back into running and to focus on running for myself. I do lead a Trail Sisters group here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and so I do a lot of running with other people, but not running for myself. So this was my first race to run by myself, for myself, and it was a really awesome and positive experience. The course is 10.5-mile loop. So 50-miler, you do it 5 times. So it was really like 52 miles. So I guess I felt like an overachiever when I went out for my 50-miler because it was more than 50. But we all know in trail running, it's either a little more or a lot more to get to your distance. The course was very runnable and has probably about 450 feet of elevation each loop around the 10.5 miles. There are pine barrens to run through, beautiful trees and ferns and rocks and roots like normal, creepy spiders at night with green sparkly eyes, and they were creepy. And but it was a really great runnable course. So after the first loop, you kind of knew where you were headed, what you were doing, and what to expect. There were 2 aid stations in the race, and the first one was at the start/finish, and the other was halfway in at Whiskey Girl. And Whiskey Girl, you could have almost anything you needed. They had such a great selection of food and support, and even whiskey at 9 in the morning or any time of the day. And the volunteers were really, really fantastic. They kept you going, and throughout the day, as you were doing more loops, the food changed. It was like a new little restaurant almost every time you came around. There was more fruit, or there were hot foods in the evening, pizza at night. So really a way to stay fueled and keep yourself going. And the field was small. There were 19 finishers in the 50 miler. And like I said, it was my first 50 miler. I had trained on my own, and then for 6 weeks I had trained with a coach. So let's just say I came in 16th out of 19th, which is great because I wasn't last. And I can proudly say I was second in my age group. There were only 2 of us in our age group, but I was second. So that makes me excited. It went as well as I think it could have. I was a little off on my own nutrition. I had done a lot of training for in hot, warmer weather, and so I took in some more electrolytes than I needed, and it messed with my stomach. But I was able to correct that mostly and keep going throughout the race. The weather was perfect. It was in the 60s. It was overcast. I barely needed my sunnies for like more than 10 minutes, I feel like, during the entire race. And it just was the perfect race conditions to get out there. No rain, great terrain, and a really beautiful location. I would definitely suggest this race to other trail runners who are looking for a race where the runners themselves who are out there, like most trail races, are super supportive, and you're looking for a looped course where if you don't have a crew, you can easily make it through that race. Without a crew, I'd say 100 miler, you probably want a crew. But, you know, if you're running one of the shorter distances, the 50K or the 50 miler, if you're an experienced 50 miler, I think that you could definitely make it through this race without a crew. There's parking available. The swag is really nice. Finisher's mug that's back there on my bookshelf, and a t-shirt. 100 milers got a buckle and I think a blanket. I didn't stay that long. I was pretty tired because it was my first one. But all in all, great race run by great people. So shout out to Happily Running. Check out their races. And I hope everyone has a great day.
All right, moving down to PA. The Fanny Pack 50K appears to be a solid fat-ass style event option run over, well, kind of style. Maybe some entry fee. It's really cryptic. I had a tough time finding any details on the event. But it's run over 2 10K loops out of Ohio Pile, PA. No results are listed, as well as much information. But hopefully they maxed out the field, which looks like it's capped at 50. Because who doesn't want a custom fanny pack as a finisher's award?
What's that you wearing on your hip? Aw, it's nothing. It's just my fanny pack. Fanny pack! I look good when I wear a fanny pack. You look good when you wear a fanny pack.
You want a fanny pack. Probably need to get on the Fanny Pack 50K next year. Green Monster Trail Challenge, put on by the Tioga Running Club in the mountains of Tioga State Forest outside of Wellsboro, PA, is a gem. I've heard nothing but good things about this event over the years, and I believe it's one that caps out as well. So keep it on your radar for next year. A piece of their description. You will be confronted with beautiful rolling single-track trails, hellacious steep climbs, abundant stream crossings, and some gnarly technical descents, all of which add to your wild experience and the joy of dragging your haggard soul across the finish line. Sounds pretty good, right? 108 finishers in the 15K. Edward Schroll and Isla Twoe emerged on top. In the 25K, Ernest Glick and Kim Harris And in the beast of the day, Ian Nolan and Rhoda Smoka for the wins in the 50K. And here to take us a bit deeper into a view of the Green Monster, women's 50K winner, Rhoda Smoker.
What's up, Trails Collective? My name is Rhoda Smoker. I live in Elverson, Pennsylvania, and this past weekend I ran the Green Monster Trail Challenge in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. They have a 50K, a 25K, and a 15K. And I ran the 50K and came in first female with a time of 6:38. This was the fourth year that I've run this race, so I was familiar with the course. It is a race put on by the Tioga Running Club. They do an excellent job, and the course is always in great shape, marked great, and a lot of fun at the finish line. Hanging out, they always have food and drinks, and they just do an excellent job putting this race on. The 50K is 32 miles of absolutely beautiful single track. Technical, I think 7,800 feet of climbing throughout the course, and there's actually a lot of runnable in the second half if you can still run at that point. So we started at 7:30 Sunday morning, and you start going up a gravel road for, I'm not sure, half mile to a mile, something like that. So I found myself alone in lead female right from the get-go, maybe 500 feet into the race. I was kind of behind the lead pack of guys and ahead of the main pack, I guess. I was back and forth with a couple people throughout the day, but mainly ran by myself the entire 32 miles, which was actually a lot of fun. I don't mind being on the trails alone. I actually kind of enjoy it and still found a way to push myself a little. I went into the race not really knowing how it would go and just knowing I wanted to try to push myself fairly hard, but also not blow up. The second half of July and most of August, I was not running at all due to some back problems, so I really didn't know what was going to happen in this race. The last race or two that I ran, I felt terrible for the first half and then a little better towards the end, which is not exactly how this race went, but somewhat. I felt okay for about 15 miles, and then my hamstrings were starting to get a little tight on me. So I was just trying to manage that and also running scared, trying not to let anyone catch me. So yeah, it was a great day. It was overcast, a little bit of rain, but overall not bad. Great running temperature and weather. So I got to, I think from 15 to 25, I was basically just trying not to blow up. I got to the aid station at mile 25, which is an awesome aid station. Best aid station on the course. Had a beer, some pierogies, and some bacon, and finished out from there. I actually felt great leaving that aid station. The hamstrings were loosening up. And I was able to run it in and finish without getting caught by any women. So, yeah, it was a great day. If you haven't run that race, I definitely recommend you check it out. And just a big thank you to the Tioga Running Club for continuing to put on a spectacular event.
So well done, Rhoda. Thanks for getting that clip over. It was a small world, and connecting for one of our prior clips where I think Rhoda hammered out an awesome FKT. Realized that she's living from, and I think living now, literally a mile or two from where I grew up. So good small world. Moving down to Virginia, High Bridge Ultra. Well, actually a 30K and 50K. I think it's called the High Bridge Ultra. Run point to point on the scenic and historic High Bridge Trail in Pamplin, Virginia. This goes point to point over a flattish crushed gravel course, which makes for a flat and fast course option, and it really does look really pretty. So if somebody's looking for a maybe a first 50K or a fast 50K for the fall, check out High Bridge for next year. In the 50K winners, Lee Jarvis and Danielle Jukes were a bit off the course records, but still quick in 3:38 and 4:20 respectively. And in the 30K, Juan Gonzalez and Devin Janua took the wins. Another one that kicked off this past weekend is week, I guess, too, depending on the distance, is the TWOT. It's the Wild Oak Trail 100. It's their hot edition. They also put on their cold edition in the winter months. And this is one that I ranked as one of the toughest courses in the Northeast. You could look at any of their distance options. It's somewhat of a fat-ass model as well. No supplemental course markings, no aid stations, no crews, no pacers, and a pretty burly 25-mile loop. I will keep an eye out for the word on results. I think occasionally they're going to tweet some updates. I think there's 4 individuals that set out to tackle the 200-mile distance, which is going now. So it's pretty awesome efforts. We will stay tuned for that. And then one more coming out of Virginia, Athletics Equations 12-hour endurance trail run. And this is one that ran, I think, a couple weeks ago now, but we're just circling back on getting the clips in. The first one will be Athletics Equations head or point person, Alex Papadopoulos. Puts on a number of events for you to check out. And then followed up by someone to take us in deeper from the running or participant angle, Thaddeus or Tad Meyer. So gents, cue us in a little bit deeper to the 12-hour endurance run.
Hey folks, Alex Papadopoulos here, bringing to you some information on our 12-hour adventure trail run. We just wrapped up our 15th running. The race itself, we designed it 15 years ago to bring in new trail runners into our trail community. So that said, it has done so. We average about 25% of all our runners are newbies. We like to call them FNGs. You can figure out what that acronym means. So anyhow, we had a great race on the 26th. On the men's side, for the first time ever, we had the top 5 runners place in the top 5, but also knock out over 60 miles each in the top 5. The first overall winner was Olivier LeBlanc, racking in a 71.5 mile performance. This also marked his 10th year of ultra running, and it was with our race, the 12-hour adventure trail run, which 10 years ago he also ran 71.5 miles. So a testament to his strength and prowess in maintaining a high level of fitness over the years. The other top 4 of the 5 runners all managed 65 miles. So it was a tight race on the men's end. On the women's end, the top 2 women, Megan Wigan was top overall woman and Jen Hayes was a second overall woman, bringing in a strong performance. Both had 48.3 miles, and they were only separated by about 15 minutes over the 12 hours. So incredible day on the ladies' end, on the men's end. And we had 13 brand new trail runners that joined the ultra community. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. The race is held here in Prince William Forest Park in Virginia. You can check us out at athletic-equation.com. All our races for 2022 are all open now for registration. That said, I'm going to pass it off to Thad Mayer. Yeah, he's one of our longtime participants, and he'll give you some down low on the race itself. Take care, and hope to see you at the next Athletic Equation event.
Hey folks, this is Tad Meyer here, recapping the 12-hour adventure trail run put on by Athletic Equation back on September 26, 2021. This is the 4th time overall that I've run the race. I ran it for the first time back in 2008. Ended up winning it with 65 miles in just over 11 hours. Ran a few more times after that, and then came back this year for the 4th time after a bit of a hiatus from organized trail races. I've done some multi-day self-organized events on my own. This is the first time, I think, since 2014, 2015, that I had gone back to Prince William to run a race. So I was looking forward to getting back out on those trails and having a good time. I didn't really have a particular goal in mind. I was hoping to get over 100K, and kind of anything above that would have been gravy. 65 miles, which is what I ran the first time in 2008, was kind of ideally where I wanted to be. Didn't quite get there this year. I think I finished with just over 62, 63 miles, which was good enough for 6, but I was really happy with that. Once again, getting over 100K in just under 12 hours was really phenomenal. I'm really happy with it. So, the 12-hour adventure trail race, as the name implies, it's a 12-hour race, so there's no set distance. You just go out and you run for 12 hours, and whoever finishes first, whoever has the most distance after that 12 hours, is the winner. So I believe Olivier LeBlond ended up winning with, I think, 72 miles overall, which I think is the course record, or ties the course record, or is close to the course record. And he went out there and just had a phenomenal day, as did the 4 other guys who finished ahead of me. We couldn't have asked for better weather. I think temperatures probably only made it up into the mid-70s, upper 70s. It was dry, there was no humidity, and the course itself was in great condition. We had some heavy rain the Thursday beforehand, and thankfully it dried out very quickly, so there were no muddy or wet spots on the trail. It was really just perfect conditions for spending a day out in the forest. New for this year, I think, so the course itself is a 6.5 mile loop that you run over and over again. But then Alex, the race director, gave the option of a new 11-mile loop option. So in addition to, going out and having a 6.5 mile loop, you could go out and you could do an 11.1 mile loop. So that was my strategy actually going out. I wanted to go out and minimize my time in the aid station, and I felt like by doing the 11-mile loops the most, or as much as possible, I could do that. So I ended up spending probably 10 hours out on the long loop. I think I came in with 5 long loops for just over 55 miles. And when I came in, I realized I didn't have quite enough time to go out for another long loop, so I opted for a short loop and ended up coming in with just over 62 miles. The course itself, for those of you who've never been down to Prince William, it's a very runnable park, mostly single track and fire road. The course that we were on, or both loops, were probably 98% fire road and single track. There's just a little bit of road where you have to do some road crossing, or where you have to get from one section of the trail to the other. But overall, I mean, it's just perfect trails to run on. Nothing overly technical, maybe a few stretches there that require walking, but for the most part, almost all runnable. It's just a fabulous course. Unless you like really technical sections that force you to walk, this is just great for running, and you can really crank out some miles. What was really fun about this year, especially more so than other years, is that I actually had my full family join me. So I have an older brother and 2 older sisters. My older brother is a seasoned ultra runner as well, and triathlete, but my 2 sisters are new to the sport of trail running and new to the sport of ultra running. And they came out to run this race as a training run and build up for a 50-miler. And happy to say they got over 30 miles. They ended up finishing with 33 miles, so 50K plus, so they can call themselves ultra runners now, which I'm very proud of. They had a great day out there. For one sister who's never run further than a marathon, this was, fabulous for her, and another sister who competed competitively in cross country and track through high school and college, and then stopped running and picked it back up 30 years later. Just fabulous to see her kind of come off the couch. We joke about it. We say couch to 50-miler, but this interim couch to 50K, she just did a fabulous job, and I couldn't be prouder of all of them. And it was a great time to share the trails out there with them and see them succeed and achieve their goals. So. Would highly recommend these races if you ever get a chance to come down to the DC area. They're so well put on. The volunteers are fabulous. So much support out on the course. Great esprit de corps and fabulous food. You'll never go hungry. I think I probably actually gained weight from running this race or the series of races that Alex puts on. But it's fabulous, and if you have a chance to do it, I would highly recommend any of the races. So thanks for listening, and hope you're doing well.
Moving back up to Vermont, the Devil's Den Trail Runs offer 6-mile, 12-hour, and 24-hour options. Run at Wrights Mountain in Bradford, Vermont. The details are scant, as were the finishers, but it looks like a beautiful day to be on the trail in Vermont. All right, and then panning back out national, the DC Peaks 50, which I mentioned in the opening of the episode. It was an inaugural point-to-point 50 run in the Wasatch Range outside of Salt Lake with 11,700 feet of gain, an elevation high point of between, I think, somewhere around 9,000 and 10,000. I read two conflicting reports. That's an altitude of 9 or 10,000. And with an average elevation of 6,604, the course is pretty stout and beautiful. The organizers were looking to bring live footage and tracking into the event, and given what went down weather-wise, that was probably a good thing. And so here to take us deeper into how that shook out is participant Arizona's Daniel Combs. So take it, Daniel.
Hi, my name is Daniel Combs. I was a runner at the DC Peaks 50 this past Saturday. Started out preparing for a normal race that was expected to have some rain, maybe a couple inches of snow. Got to the race, it was raining. I was prepared. I had stocking cap on, tights, long sleeve shirt, sweatshirt, running jacket. We went on, started the race. About an hour into the race, it really started coming down. It was quickly up to 2 feet of snow, sleet, hail, 30 to 40 miles per hour winds. It was just nasty. It made everything treacherous. So we're running along, and I kept on falling due to hypothermia. I got lucky because there was 3 other runners that found me, and they helped me along, kept me moving, kept picking me up. That went on for 6 hours, during which one of the runners had a GPX file on his watch, so he kept on trying to navigate us, which was at times very difficult. Got lost a few times and found our way back to the path, at least within 100 to 300 yards of it. That kept us in the general right direction. Kept on thinking as I kept on falling, and things just got worse. This is not how I saw myself dying. I started trying to practice the Wim Hof technique that I've been looking into for a while. It kind of helped, but just kept on moving along. We had no other choice, no other option, but to just keep on moving on. When we did finally get to the first aid station that we got to, it was abandoned. The tin was all tattered, and there was 3 Gatorade coolers left there. So we refilled our water containers with Gatorade and hydrated before we moved on. We moved on as well as we could. About 2 miles after that, we ran into the search and rescue unit that was sent to search for anyone that was left on the trails. When they found me, I was in horrible shape with the hypothermia. They immediately took action. Probably saved my life with feeding me Swedish fish and making sure that I was out of my wet clothes and in the warming blankets and the hypothermia gear. After that, it took a little while. they finally got my hypothermia just mildly down enough to move me to a snowmobile, where they put me in the front of the snowmobile and brought me down to safety. I did register for this race again next year, in hopes that they follow through with their plans. If the course does become treacherous again, they did plan on using an alternate route. That way we're not put in those conditions again. I had a lot of fun not dying.
So nice work, Daniel. Way to go after your first finish, but also glad you made it out of there. Pretty crazy. All right, upcoming events for the weekend, October 16th in Connecticut, the Mohawk Mountain 8-hour race. New Hampshire, the Ghost Train Rail Trail event, which is somewhat of a cult classic. New Jersey, the South Mountain Reservation Mayapple Trail Runs 50K, and the Trails for Tales 50K in Trenton. In New York, Fred von der Heide Memorial 6-hour in Kings Park, New York. In PA, the Presque Isle Personal Endurance Classic 12-hour, the Oil Creek 50K, 100K, 100-mile in Titusville, the Payne and Green Lane 6-hour, 12-hour, and 50K in Green Lane. Mule Skinner Endurance Races 50K, 50-mile, 100K in Upper Black Eddy, and the Cinnamahone Ultra 50K Ultramarathon in Emporium, PA. In Virginia, Andy's Backyard Ultra in Earlysville, the Bryce Conquer the Mountain Oktoberfest 50K in Bessie, Virginia. Cloud Splitter 50K, 100K, 100-mile in Norton, Virginia. Nolan Trail 50K in Newport News. And the going down right now, the Hot Wild Oak 28, 12.8, and 200-mile runs in Wild Oak on the Wild Oak Trail in Virginia. With, as I mentioned, the 200-mile going, I think, right now. And in Vermont, Run It You Won't at Mad River Glen, 6-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour in Waitsfield. The Run Amok 50K in Windsor. The Trap Lodge Mountain Marathon in Stowe. And yeah, that's what I got that's running. So that's, I think, we'll wrap this episode. Thanks again for all those taking the time to plug this in your own streams, liking the video, liking the channel, checking out our Trails Collective store and supporting us that way. Reaching out if you have any clips or events, feedback, things you want reported on, or questions about any gear or products. So thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you next week. Till then, see ya!